All right, welcome back to week 3, and you should be partway through the reading on week 3. And one of the big questions that I want you to think about and juggle with is the significance of the gun. Okay, so we know that the gun is what ultimately causes the death of Jerome, but why is it so important in this story? What is it symbolic of? Would the story be the same if it was a different circumstance in the way that he was killed? If the police hadn't used a gun to kill Jerome, would things have been different? And I want you to think about the relationship between Carlos and the gun. So we're seeing this whole story through Jerome's perspective. And he is narrating what's happening as he flashes forward and flashes backwards in different moments in time and kind of unravels these events for us. I want you to think about the importance of major and minor characters in this story. And I'm going to pull up for just a moment a diagram that shows the difference between major and minor characters if you are unsure or you need a little bit of clarification. So major characters play an important role in the story. They usually face an obstacle. They'll be present throughout all or almost all of the story, and there can be one major character or several. And then looking at minor characters, they do not play a major role in the story. They usually do not face an obstacle. They usually do not change throughout the story. And they're just there for major characters to interact with and help fill in some of the gaps of that plot. Think about plays and movies that you've seen and some of those extra characters that might have come into one or two scenes, but aren't significant in the interaction of the major story, the themes, and the lessons that are happening. So I want you to tackle this idea of Carlos and first decide, is he a major character and is he a minor character? And based on what bullets do you see there, does that explain his role in the story? And then I want you to make some connections to Carlos and the gun and the symbolism. So what does that gun stand for in Carlos's mind and through his eyes and through his perspective? And how is it different from the perspective of Jerome? You might have to go back a couple chapters and think about the way that Jerome responded to the gun when he first saw it, and then also advance yourself forward to when Jerome introduces this gun, which is here in the chapter labeled December 8 gun. And I want you to reread those pieces of dialogue as Carlos explains why he thinks the gun is so important, and also the responses of the bullies. So that's your big task in your thinking moments for this week, determining the symbolism or why this gun is so important in this part of the story and holistically the whole story, the story that Sarah is telling, the story that Officer Moore is telling, the story that the grandparents and the parents and Jerome are telling, and even Emmett Till, which we'll uncover a little bit more as we get later on into the story. So think about that. That is your big thinking point, and your theme this week is the major characters versus the minor characters, Carlos and his relationship between all of these events, and then that gun and the impact that it has on the plot. All right. Look for a comprehension quiz at the beginning of next week that gives you more chances to fill in some points with who, what, when, where, why, and how events, and an opportunity to respond to one another.